On behalf of the National Autism Society of Malaysia, the board members, the staff, and the families we serve, we want to say thank you for joining us in this very important conversation about parenting and training and the tools we need. We all know April is Autism Awareness Month. And here in NASOM, we've been talking to families, experts, and autism self-advocates. From love on the spectrum to the latest research in the fastest growing childhood disorder as described in the United States, we have got you covered. As more and more children and adults are being diagnosed, the focus by most NGOs and government entities is shifting the way we think from the way of finding a cure towards acceptance. Promoting acceptance is being promoted, and how autism is being described is changing. It's really changing from awareness to acceptance. And today we have Puan Nori Abdullah Badawi, and she's a mother to 3 children, and she's going to be here today to discuss with us about Timur, her son, and how her family has really coped with the upbringing of Timur and how her family dynamics has changed. And in one of the conversations with her, she's always mentioned that parenting or parents are the most important person in a child's life, and how important is it for parents to be equipped, to be trained, to be retrained. And let's hear it from the mother herself as to how she's going to be changing our mindsets about what she does and about the different kind of strategies she has in her own training program. Thank you, Puan Nori. It's all yours now.
Thank you so much to our Miss Anne and all the other wonderful people at NASOM. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I feel like it's becoming an annual date, even though we get to touch base with each other throughout the year. Can you hear me clearly?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon. Salam sejahtera to everybody. I'm so grateful for this privilege and opportunity to be here with NASOM, and to all those of you who have taken time out to join. It is approaching Raya and also the Labor Day weekend, and there must be a lot going on. Okay, so I'll get straight into it. I think Anne, just call me Nuri so I can call you Anne when we speak. I don't want to appear rude, but it may be a little bit easier, when I reference certain things. So we have had a chance to speak to each other over the last year in particular, and I think I've done a few of these parent sharing sessions or talks, and sometimes a workshop, and I think that particularly for new parents, not just new parents, but one of the pieces of advice that I personally received when Timur was diagnosed, and Timur is my autistic boy, he's number 2, so he's in the middle, he's 13 years now, and our journey is like about, a little over 10 years because he was diagnosed at 3. One of the most important pieces of advice that I received, and I continue to pass on to anyone really, is the importance of continued education and parent training in order to be able to support your child. Personally, I believe that parent training can be really, really useful for all parents. Before we had Timur, I think when we had Jibril, my oldest one, both my husband and I had already, signed up and attended a couple of parenting workshops. I think it's probably one of the most important things you do in your life. Might be one of the most difficult things you do in your life that you really love. And I hope that you love it. And I think if you get this kind of, the support, and you build your skills and you build your knowledge in this, and it becomes something even more meaningful. And the reason why I say that is, is that we, think about the things that we do, even to just get a job. So for many of us, after we finish formal schooling, which is basically secondary or high school, there is an option to do further education, whether it's in a form of some kind of vocational training or getting the opportunity to go to university. And we prepare for all this, and it can take years and years, and we're just doing this to try to get a job. And if you think about how much prep you have in becoming a parent, well, it varies, right? It really varies. And I think we count on, that love and that sort of, the natural instincts that we have to nurture and to care. And of course, those things are big and they matter very much. But we could certainly use, I think, a little bit more info. Personally, for me, I had lost my mother before I had children. So I felt like I needed to, build up more skills and get to know things. And what more after we had Timo? Um, I think it's made such a huge, huge difference for me to have been able to try to learn more. And what do I mean by training? I'm not necessarily talking about getting formal education as such, or having to put yourself through something where you then become qualified officially, to help your child, whether it's with regards to therapy or some kind of intervention. But honestly, it can be anything, whatever is accessible to you, whatever you think you can do and whatever you can afford. And continuing education could be, for all the things that we've been able to avail ourselves of during the pandemic, like, sessions, parents sharing sessions, or, seminars and things like that. But I also personally believe that in terms of an investment of your time and also a little bit of money, do look out for, possible short courses and workshops with people who are established as experts, where they are going to be talking about evidence-based methods, anything like this. I know that parents who are the most sort of settled and happy and joyful, and even if they have a child with profound difficulties, based on whether they're, autistic or some other kind of neurodiversity. Sometimes they present with other disabilities too. The parents and the families that are, more settled and able to kind of be out there in the community and help others are the ones who've really, really invested in learning a lot more for themselves. So I've got some friends who cover the whole range. There's a dear friend of mine, Desiree, who runs Project Hans. She's got a master's in special education. She decided to do that to support her son Hans, and now there's this wonderful website where she's sharing so many resources and things, for parents out there, because she felt when Hans was diagnosed that she didn't quite know where to turn. It was a combination of occasionally a lot of information and you don't know which one, and at the same time, well, where else do I go? Where do I really look at, right? And and also parents, have another good friend of mine, Didi, like me. I think we really love to see how we can sign up and learn whatever is the latest development with respect to thinking in neurodiversity, with parent support, with neuroscience. I think wherever we can avail ourselves, we do. And though, of course, the wonderful thing about her is that she shares through the Autism Malaysia Network. So these are just like examples of certain things, but I feel that for me it's been life changing. One of the things is it's not so much to try to figure out and that suddenly there's going to be some kind of miracle or that you have to always look for the latest and new thing. What's more important really is to, start to delve into things that have good data, evidence, and research, and get to know these things more, because you're going to lean back on these things quite a lot. So, for example, the importance of sensory integration related therapy and a sensory diet and things that can support your child in this way. Because, as we know, autism presents itself with a bunch of other comorbidities, and one of the most common and frequent ones, I would say, in nearly everyone, although it's a spectrum, nearly everyone who is autistic, is some form of a sensory processing issue. And you're going to have to learn to manage this. And so this is, for example, one area that we could really look at. And there's a lot of things that you can do. You can avail yourself so the expertise of occupational therapists, sensory integration practitioners, and then there are other therapists out there. Like I have some wonderful people I work with at the Energy Source who are they have a physiotherapist, a pediatric physio background, but they're also sensory integration trained. So this is, for example, one of those key areas. And the other things are like, of course, how to support development of speech and language and communication in particular, even if not speech, because there's lots of ways that you can communicate, and that's probably the most important, even if your child cannot verbalize or talk yet. So look into things which have a lot of, which are very established as evidence, right? And get to know those first. And then you can figure out how to update yourself from there or, learn a bit more. And I think the other thing that, I got reminded today that we discover is that, when you do these things and you're together with a group of people, like how I feel so lucky to be with all of you today, is you kind of remember that you're not alone. This journey of being a parent with of a child with special needs or some form of a disability or a child that's different because of the neurodiversity, right? Sometimes it feels a little bit like lonely, or you're thinking, of course there are those days when it can be overwhelming. So I think you need those reminders that there's a community out there. There's people you can reach out to, people who are going through the same thing. And then when you attend, like a seminar, workshop, or a course, actually, engage in things like that, then there's usually an opportunity to get to know, some other people, including, the instructor. And you really should avail yourself of all this knowledge and information. Really, really, it has made a huge difference. I think essentially you just have to remember that it is a fact that for the majority of children in the world, their parents or a parent is probably the single biggest influence in their life. And this is true even in their absence, right? So not having your parent around can also make a huge difference to what happens to your way of thinking, your daily life, your values, your culture. I mean, so many things come from your parents and your family. So if we think about it like that, I think, we really do owe it to our children who we've decided to bring forth into the world to be as good of a version of ourselves that we can be, and see that what we can do for them. And we particularly need that extra support when they're different. Parenting is already a challenge, right? I think I said that at the very beginning. And those of you who are fellow parents here or who also work with people in the autistic community, you'll know what I mean by those extra layers of, things that make it a little bit more complex. Of course, makes it a little bit more interesting and life is richer. But you need to have those skills, I think, better skills, and also that sense of confidence to be able to get the best potential out of your child and family life and all of your children all together. So for all of you, and that is there's some work that I do with that, and then maybe we can talk about that later. I will pause for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nori. Nori, you spoke a lot about you're not alone, and it's very important to be surrounded with people who can support. So could you please tell us a little bit about, was it difficult for you to get that extended family support when you realized that Timur had autism, or it was something that was easily accepted by your extended family?
Okay, so I would say that I feel very, very blessed and lucky in this area. Timur is not the first neurodiverse child in the family. We already had my amazing niece Aisha, who has Down syndrome. And I think because of that, we already had this opportunity to learn and expose ourselves to this wonderful world of the neurodiverse brain and mind and different ways of being human, right? So we did not have difficulty in the sense of anybody in the family struggling with denial or acceptance. So from my family and largely the extended family and also friends, they were there for support. So I think this is an opportunity for me to mention that when I say, you know, don't feel lonely and go out there and get connected or get that kind of help. I think you also have to be in a position to want to be open to receiving help and that support and making that connection. Because I think what happened is I was kind of so busy in the early weeks and months, and for us it was like, okay, go go go, action, what do we need to do now, what does he need, what does he need, so there were things that happened along the way, or didn't happen till later rather, which is even just processing, feeling everything, this huge life-changing event. I mean, having a child is already life-changing, and then when it's there are unexpected things that come along with it, then it's actually really big, and there's things that you need to sit with, and kind of make sure that you're okay. So I was, I think, so busy in this action mode. It wasn't just me. I think my husband was the same, and the family also was like, okay, because we didn't have to go through that denial acceptance kind of thing. It was like, okay, what do we do, right? Let's start therapy, let's start early intervention, let's this, let's that, that kind of thing took precedence. And I did not initially reach out to fellow parents and families like ourselves, because again, we were sort of so lucky to be able to avail ourselves of looking for um, therapists from the private sector, looking at kindergartens which were more inclusive, and I it just didn't. I think it's when things get tough again, or you come to a stage where maybe you get a little bit stuck, and then you suddenly realize, well, wait a second, do I really know what I'm doing? Am I doing this right? Did I, make some good choices here for my child? What else would, another parent maybe in a more similar situation would have done, right? So it was only a little bit later, I would say, that I then established those connections and friendships, and they have made such a huge difference to my life. I think that those of you with children, whatever kind of children you have benefited from your own network and friends as parents, right? I think as parents we trust a lot in other parents' recommendations, and they are really often our first point of reference. So it's the same. It's the same when you when you have a child with special needs, or different other needs that typical children you know might not require. So um, when it was time to kind of reach out, some of the opportunities came because of things like, attending like a course or a little workshop together. And before I forget, I wanted to mention, I think in this whole process of this, continuous learning, and for myself, for my kids, I think what I have found amongst the most beneficial really is not just the things that helped me with Timor, but also things that helped me for myself. So learning about, how to make sure that I'm in a good position to be able to then, help give support to my child. I mean, it includes things like self-care. These are words that, self-care, mindfulness. I certainly didn't grow up hearing these words or really understanding what they meant, right? And it was quite a big thing. There was one very, well, I call it perhaps one of the most life changing um, short courses that I attended. It was to do with mindfulness in the care of a person with special needs. So I had really thought it was going to be, I'm going to learn all this new stuff that I need to know about Timor and how to manage Timor. And a huge portion of it, I think about half of it, was how do I sort myself out before I'm ready to, be able to do the best that I can for my child. So those have been really, really amazing. Thanks for your
Thank you so
question.
Thank you. Self-help is self-care. You got to get yourself right before you can care for someone else. That is very, very powerful. And I've seen you walking the talk, actually, Nori. I've attended your talk, and in fact, last week I was there, listening to you talking about puberty and it's really powerful. And I like what you said about sharing, sharing stories and impacting someone with your personal experience. And you did mention about as soon as you found out Timur has autism, you embarked on the different therapies, and it was like, okay, what's next? I also remember reading you and your husband were like, okay, what's next? We're not going to sit down here and how do I say, grumble about it, or things that are, correct me if I'm wrong. And you decided, the both of you decided that, okay, what are the next steps? And because you've done that, and I feel personally that you care for all the families there, especially the families who don't have much and they can't seek the right therapies or the right services, and it's not been given to them, although the government provides all the services, but our waiting list is very, very long. And so you've actually, in your gym, you've come up with really good services for families who cannot afford. And can you tell us a little bit about We Rock the Spectrum, and what sort of services it has, and why did you decide that, okay, this is the space that is going to be helping families and their children? Can you please tell us a little bit more about that one?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my kids' gym. So, We Rock the Spectrum Kids Gym is actually established in the US, and the founder is a mother herself of two wonderful children, and her boy happens to be autistic. So she built like a little gym because her son Gabriel, needed it, right, for his sort of OT and sensory activities, and this was something she found was really great. And she had set it up so nicely, and it was big enough to share, that it kind of, then sort of grew because she was sharing it with others, and then people were saying, why aren't there more of this, and so on. And within 6 years, it became like a franchise with like over 40 locations in the US. We discovered it in the US when we were there visiting. My husband was there for work. Carrie took the opportunity at that time to have us along as a family. And with all the three kids there, we were always looking out for spaces and things, opportunities where we can all be sort of together, right? Because, for example, at this point in time, team sports are not something that teamwork can do. Whereas my number one and my number three, they play football, right? And they can all kind of do that together. So not all activities are suitable and kind of fun for everybody, right? But we found this gym. Carrie found this gym, and we went and we just fell in love with the place, and we're like, goodness, there really should be something like that, this at home in KL. And then, to cut the long story short, essentially we decided to bring this gym here because we figured it would be great for our kids because it's an inclusive space. So We Rock the Spectrum essentially is an indoor play center where children of all abilities can come together, play, learn, and grow together. And so it was going to be for all our kids. And then we thought, well, how cool would it be something like this if we could share with everybody else, right? So the premise of We Rock is that there is this specialized equipment that therapists use, but it's gym equipment, so it's fun for all sorts of kids, right? It can kind of be fun for everybody. I mean, children thrive on movement and play and things like that. And the main difference, of course, is apart from the equipment, is this inclusive philosophy. So we have that, and what happens is you can come in for a price that's comparable to other indoor play spaces, but because the equipment is there, you can actually conduct therapy for a child that needs it, right? So this reduces the cost of getting therapy by quite a lot. So you're talking about the difference between like maybe between 150 to 200 ringgit and sometimes more, compared to an entrance fee of about 40 to 50 ringgit. So of course that does make a difference. Now there are still families who cannot afford the entrance fee to a play space. That's still considered a luxury. So for families like that, I think we wanted to make sure that we found a way to give them access to the therapy that could make such a difference to their child. So I've been very fortunate that after we developed a program called Therapy Through Play right here in We Rock the Spectrum, Malaysia, where we want to help families, parents in particular, build skills and confidence to be able to do therapeutic activities with their child. We kicked that off with a pilot and then later managed to get an amazing partner in Yayasan Hasanah, and then supported by our friends at the Energy Source, which is where the smaller gym is housed at, to support us on the therapy side. And with sort of these two great partnerships, we're able to offer the Therapy Through Play program for those who cannot afford it. So the criteria here in KL is based on a monthly household income that puts you in the B40 group. If you have an autistic child, you can apply to join the program, and it's fully funded, not just for you to be able to come in, get that screening and a customized program and learn how to do these things with your child, but we're also supported by, we also support you by doing workshops because of the parent training component that we believe in, and videos so that you can continue to do these things at home and at school and anywhere else. And in addition to that, we're actually able to subsidize the costs of what it takes for you to invest your time and effort to come to the gym. So there's like a transportation and time off allowance as well. We really wanted to make sure that this was something that could truly encourage parents to really come and do this and to see that it is worth their time and effort, with everything else, of course, that life demands, that this is something you can do. So we've been able to continue the program into the next cycle. We started off with Yayasan Hasanah. We had a batch of 50 kids, and we moved on to the next, and we're in the middle of a grant cycle now that allows for about 200 kids, and a little more than that actually, that I'm really grateful for. And we're still taking applications. You can get in touch with us at We Rock the Spectrum on Facebook, on Instagram, and things like that. And essentially, it's something that I'm happy that we're able to offer at the gym. And an important component of that, of course, is the parent training and workshop. So it's wajib, it's mandatory for TTP families, at least one of the parents, to attend several workshops during the course of their cycle of the program. And that's where you get to kind of expose yourself to what I hope what we've been working on and plan to be things that I think can help them along in their journey. And again, that sort of connection with everybody. So yeah, that's what TTP is about at the Kids Gym.
TTP is train the parents, right?
Therapy Through Play.
Oh, Therapy Through Play.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I should have mentioned. That's our acronym for Therapy Through Play, which is the name of the program.
Therapy Through Play. And then also, Nori, your program is for 6 months, am I correct?
Okay, so that's the cycle. But what it is I would say, rather than the duration, it is actually, so you get to come in with your child to the gym 10 times, and it's you're meant to do it on a weekly basis actually, and that is generally what also happens if you sign up for sessions one-to-one with many therapists, whether you're looking at OT or you're looking at speech, right? And for us, what we offer here is movement and sensory based therapy, because this is actually even the foundation for speech, language, and communication. And this is kind of where we all start, right? As sentient beings, human beings, we need to move. We've learned over the years, it's so amazing how it's not just your brain that actually controls all these things, like it's not just it's not the command and control center of your whole body, but in fact, it can be influenced by what the rest of your body does, right? Movement, specific types of movement can build new neural neural pathways, can grow different areas of your brain, can build, skills and things, even for areas of your brain and body that are not commonly used, for particular activities. There's so many things that can actually happen through that. So that is the basis of the therapy that we offer. So the idea is you come in, you get screened. That allows your child to then have a sensory profile and will be given a customized program. And the whole team at WRTS, along with our therapists, will show you how to do this with your kids, right? And it's about the parents doing this with your kids, but we'll give you the support. So you learn the skills, you build that confidence that you can do this with your kid. And, this has become super important. This is what we learned in the pandemic, right? Parents have suddenly had to do more. A lot of them have suddenly had to become teachers. And if you have a child, that you need to support in this way, it's like, the parent hat is on, then the teacher, and then the next minute it's therapist. You do have to do this. But, even outside of the pandemic, this is really, really important. Google any kind of research and data, and they'll show you that, children's success, potential, their happiness comes from involved parents, right? So you come in, join the program, so then you do this whole block, and then you will get that review, and then it will tell you where your child is. We share information to see if there's been good progress and next steps, right? And in the course of your child coming in, and you will also be attending those workshops, and then you have the videos and things like that. So that's how it works. So the 6 months actually is including everything, which is like when people apply, and then we go through the application process, and then later on we have to write a report. The report is really very important because we have to stay on top of monitoring. We have to gather the data, and we are of course very much accountable and must have our own good practices to avail ourselves of the support of the wonderful people at Yayasan Hasana. I mean, not just them, but anybody else really. I mean, when you have public money or any kind of contribution that's coming to support you, I think you have to demonstrate that it is well spent and how it's going, and also what happens, right? Like what happened as an outcome. I mean, that's the most exciting thing. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to the team, and just and the parents for trusting us, because the outcomes have been really good. I mean, we had 50 kids from 43 families, because some of them were siblings. And we had like a 97% feedback of at least one area of improvement in their child after that. It was just great to hear. I mean, if I didn't believe it would happen, we wouldn't have done the program. But just to hear that it did, right? That this thing happened. I mean, this is something that we have done ourselves with amongst some, part of what we have done with Timor. And we know that it can work. We know it can help so much, and that's why it was so important to share, right? To see who else can come and avail themselves of this. We have a paid version of the program, so it's not just you have to be super lucky to then suddenly be able to come on board and become a person who's sponsored for TTP. You can come and join the program. There is a paid version of it as well, because we believe it can work for most kids. And oh yes, after we completed the first cycle, this time we also have support from speech language pathologists. So we have support for speech language communication development for your child as part of the program as well.
Right. So it's like a multidisciplinary team that actually works with the child there. And yeah. And I think that is really, really powerful, because like what we are seeing in our centers now is like some of the children, they get the benefits from working with a speech therapist and some with an occupational therapist, but it's not a combined thing. So at times we feel that they are losing out on some experts. And so the development is just not how we want to see it happening as fast as it can get, right? So this is superb. And also your son, Timur, I am assuming he's actually gone through this whole program in the gym as well, before you could even think about how it's going to benefit other people. Did it happen like that? before you and Kyrie decided that okay, this is something we want to bring back to our home country so that other kids can actually benefit?
Okay, so Therapy to Play, the TTP program, is something that was developed here in Malaysia. We kind of did it over here. And how I did it was through, you're right, it came through the experiences of what we had gone through with Timor. And we had the privilege, again, I say that we started off first working one-to-one with many different types of therapists, right? And of course, he benefited immensely from it. But I also found that it helped us out when it was the therapists that encouraged parent involvement and who were willing to teach me things and also say that, well, these are the ongoing things that you can also do for him at home, right? And then we got to a phase where Timo was already able to attend school with, of course, support and accommodations and changes to suit his needs. And he couldn't do like some of the one-on-ones as much as he used to. And so I spoke to a number of his therapists and especially the OTs and other OTs that I had also gotten to know and said, what can we do if there is if we're not going to be able to do things one-to-one, for whatever reason. And I was thinking to myself that, for us, it was Timor got busy. Wow, how fortunate, like what a great problem to have in that sense, right? But for some people, it was just because it was not, it's not something that was affordable, right? And so we've got to figure out something where children can still have access to that type of therapy they need, but in a more affordable and an accessible way. So what we had started to do with Timor actually was that one of his OTs, and by that time we had built the gym. We opened the gym, in the first one in Malaysia, at the end of 2016. And I had therapists who got excited about our gym, and they were suggesting it to other clients to kind of as homework or as additional support. And then what happened with one of our wonderful OTs is that he said, why don't I come over? I'll look at all the equipment and show you all the different things that you can do. And, you guys do it. And we had sort of been doing that already, but he had actually then come and wrote out like an entire program because of where Timo was at that point, right? Like, did he need more vestibular input? Did he need more proprioceptive input? And for Timo, he needs both. He needed to figure out how to get the body in better balance, and he needed that joint sense, and he needed all that, support for the other stuff, for focus, as well as what to do when it's more like a calming down kind of thing. So that was just really useful. And then I went on and had these other conversations, other people saying, well, would this work for other kids, right? I mean, autism is a spectrum, as we know, and everybody presents with different issues related to this condition. So I just wanted to see if this was something that could actually be helpful to at least a significant number of children. I should mention that this program is really kind of geared towards 3 to 12, and this is because also of the type of space and the equipment we have at the gym. I mean, a lot of these activities you can continue on until adulthood, but we do find sort of better progress and more outcomes if we deal with children when they are younger. So the program is actually designed for that age group. And I got a lot of good responses and feedback. And also, it was like, in some group discussions, we had some light bulb moments when we were like, well, wait a second, there are some things which parents can absolutely do and not necessarily have to be done specifically by the therapist, and that's basically how it was developed. And now we have it as a therapy to play, and we have enough data to show that it's working. So I'm grateful for that.
Very nice. I remember visiting your space, in 2016 at Cheetah Mall. I think it was your aunt who was there, Rahma, and she was explaining how it works, and you can be big and it can still take your weight. And I was looking at the flying fox and I said, this is so cool to have a flying fox indoor, and how children can actually, as what you were saying, the power of observation of the therapist, and from there deriving like an individual educational plan for them to see what's going to work, training the families to also do it at home. And then when you come back next, who knows, you may see improvement, and then you go to the next step. Or if you see regression, redo your plan and see how best it's going to work. And we will take a question now. We have a question on the chat group. And it reads like that. It reads, Assalamualaikum and Salam Sejahtera. My name is Amirul. My question is, how do we know our kids or our students have a behavior problem or sensory problem? Thank you. Can you take that, Nori, please?
Sure. I'll try my best. I am not a qualified therapist. There should be this big disclaimer, actually, that this is still a very, parent sharing session. But I will try to see how I can explain this. Now, the sensory system, the most common one we know are like the touch, taste, smell, hear, feel, things like this. And this is part of, the human body, right? The human condition. Now, we are all, if things are working as they should be able to hear. And, just as an example of one of our sensory systems. But when you have a processing disorder or a condition, you might not be able to hear very well, or under certain situations, or you might be oversensitive to sound. So for example, to identify a kid that may have an issue with this, or a person that has this, it's not about a hearing impairment, or somebody who is deaf, but because of certain types of conditions, you could see perhaps the person doing this. And what do you do? What are you doing when you're closing your ears, right? Essentially, you're trying to block out sound. So that means, it's like you only do this if it's too loud. Now, if a child is doing this and no other children are doing it, or it's in a situation where a typical person who doesn't have these issues wouldn't find, particularly disturbing or too loud, then that could be one clue of a sensory processing issue related to this. Now, there are a whole bunch of these different clues that you can look out for. And essentially, it is when it is an unexpected behavior of a child, of a person, right? So when you see certain types of movements that you don't typically expect or see in a given situation, or in comparison to children of the same age with their peers, and you see it frequently, and there is enough for you to establish a pattern, and it really is something that you don't expect to find at that time. And it could be things from wanting to lick or touch or eat things that other people don't want to. It could be typical types of repetitive movement, like this, spinning, it could also be like a sensitivity to touch, not wanting people to touch you, or difficulty with putting, clothes and things like this on. So there are a whole bunch of things that could potentially indicate that there is a sensory issue happening. Now, if there is a sensory issue, it doesn't mean necessarily that the child has a disability. Also doesn't mean necessarily that the child is neurodiverse with a particular diagnosis, right? There can be typical human beings who have a little bit of these kinds of sensory issues. But if you're talking about already having identified a child with a particular diagnosis, let's say like we're talking about autism today, then you want to look out for these other things. And an initial diagnosis will probably cover part of it, but not necessarily all of the things that are going to present with your child being autistic, because it's also going to come from, continued observation and things like that, which is why even getting a diagnosis, takes time, right? And it involves things like a parent interview and questionnaires and pages of information to fill out, not just the expert or the doctor or the psychologist, whoever sitting down and observing the child. So a lot of things can, you can continue to learn about your kid, and you do want to learn about this because the sensory issue can be something that is almost debilitating. It could prevent you from, the daily life, things that you need to do. It can interrupt with learning, like a child who cannot manage a sensory processing issue. Like, for example, you imagine somebody who is so highly sensitive to noise. If they're overwhelmed all the time, like, what else, how else can you engage your body, mind, and everything to do something else, right? So you would have to manage it. So yes, rather long explanation, but just remember, unexpected behaviors in comparison to people at the same age, that will probably indicate some kind of sensory processing issue.
Thank you so much. I hope that has answered your question, Amino. Nori, we at NASO, we face a great challenge, as in to have parents to be involved, like, parental engagement. And it seems like We Rock the Spectrum has done it really well, where, parents as partners. Could you share some of those tips with us so that we can learn and we can implement it in our centers, so that we feel that, if parents, if they can play a better role or a more active role, that the child will actually benefit better. So if you can share some of those tips, that will be very helpful to us. Thank you.
First of all, I think I should say I feel that we're really still learning, and we have taken inspiration from groups like NASO. You're pioneers in this area. So it's interesting that you say that, we're all still learning about the best way to engage with parents. And I think that at the gym, we are definitely still learning too. We haven't figured it all quite yet. Like, we slowly built this, trying to get like a community or group support with the parents. Like, in the beginning, we didn't immediately have like a WhatsApp chat for parents to be able to communicate as a group with us or each other. So it's very step by step, and I would still say we are still in that process. What I would say is, in terms of the parent engagement part, I think it's just to, if it's like NASOM and you are an organization, this whole umbrella body with a structure in place and certain things in place where you can actually do formal and very conscientious type of outreach, I think it's opening up again, which is really great. That we are hopefully being able to move on from the pandemic, and then you can have in-person meets again. But that would be one way where you just sort of, invite and encourage people to sort of, kind of get to know each other, get to connect, provide a platform or a channel for them to do that. And of course, one of the easiest ways, and this can happen from neighborhood groups to office or your department or something like that, or whatever at work, it's based off of WhatsApp, essentially, right? Because it's something that's quite commonly used here in Malaysia. The majority of people have a smartphone, thankfully, and the connectivity is there. But it could be some other kind of platform. So one, it could be a physical gathering, but it could also be sort of like this, right? Virtual thing, inviting parents to come and join, and so that they can hear, and they can share and learn. They can kind of get to know each other. And I think sometimes you have to motivate them a little bit. So of course, what we do is we share, information and things, and whether it's tips and stuff like that, or infographics and all. And I know that NASOM does this too. Get them interested first, and hopefully, when you then organize something where you want the parents to connect with each other, then they'll go, okay, I'll come. But try to seed it with information about how important and how valuable and beneficial it can be for these connections to happen, right? Like stories about, parents, being able to help each other out, or their children get to play with each other. Because sometimes with our children, that are not typical, all the things that we used to think were like very, common, or like almost like a given, like a play date, going out, hanging out together, even like at school in the canteen, even being able to go to school. These are things that don't necessarily happen with our kids, right? So how do we then give them those same opportunities that we should all avail ourselves of, right? As people, as human beings. I mean, don't forget, we're people first. And we need that. We need that connection, and to build those bonds, those relationships, those friendships. So sometimes that will happen when you meet another person, right? Just like at school. If like you have a typical child and your child is going to school, how do you end up, making friends? Perhaps it's when you dropped your child off. It's your friends, your child's classmate, or it becomes a buddy or a friend, then you get to know the mom, right? And then you build a friendship from there. So it's things like this. But I think just reminding parents of, children with special needs, how even more important and resourceful and amazing it can be to have that support. um I've got two friends here, and as soon as they popped on, I felt like I got a little bit of an energy boost just to see their names and their faces. It's that good. There's even a science, by the way, behind this, about how, one of the things that you can do as parents, where it's very, very well documented that if you have a child with special needs, your stress levels are super high. They are way higher than average. And this can lead to so many other things, right? Your health, your own health can get affected, whether it's mental, social, emotional, or even your physical health, because you've been bogged down. And there are these things that protect your DNA, like receptors, the basic structure of your cell. It's this, what is the technical term? It's these things called telomeres, and they're at the end. And what happens in situations of high stress is they start to get frayed. They really physically start to deteriorate, which is horrible, right? And they've seen this deterioration in parents of special needs. So this is not good news. The good news, however, is that the science has also shown that with something as simple as a regular connection of like having your girls hang out with you, go for coffee, get that love and support from, people that are, that care about you, that you care for, your telomeres can grow back. So it's amazing. It doesn't even happen with like some kind of like a vitamin or a structured therapy program or counselor or something like that. It's just feeling supported and also giving support in return, and that building that, like a sense of, that's this friendship and sense of community. So it's so important. So share with parents about how important it is to be connected. Create the opportunities for them to connect with each other, whether it's virtual or physical. And I think, remind again and again and again. And if you see somebody that's looking like they're having a hard time, or they're looking, or they've said that they're lonely, then please reach out. You can't always wait for the person to come and initiate to you, right? We sometimes have to be the ones who say hi, and like, is there something I can do for you? I mean, and I tell you, at some of these moments, that's all really that you need to say, like, how can I help? I mean, how can I help? I mean, there are not many words, but every time I've heard those words, it's like, there is this angel, there is another blessing again to count, right?
Thank you so much. So it's not really about Timur's mother, but it's like, who is Timur's mother, so that I can have a friend in her, and I can form my own focus for my own support group among other mothers or fathers. So
Oh
that
yeah, you need your own support group. You really do.
Oh,
It
yeah,
it's big. Not just Timor needs all his support and his teachers and his therapists and
absolutely.
everything around him. Timor's main caregivers need their support too, especially the parents. So again, that reminder of, amongst the most beneficial things that I have learned, formally and informally, is not just the skills required specifically for Timor, but for me. It's been amazing education to me. I mean, this is why he's such a blessing. And I will always say that, he's going to end up giving me so much more than I've, ever given him, really.
Okay, thank you. I think we have some more questions. Would anyone who's listening here, would you like to pose a question to our speaker, Nori. Please unmute yourself and you can, give a comment or a word of encouragement or ask her a question. Desiree, you want to say something? You look like you want to say something.
Hi everyone. So just very quickly wanted to say great session, Nori. As usual, always love hearing you speak. Sorry I was a little late. But yeah, parental training, training ourselves I think it's very important. I know Nori has covered the main points, but for me personally, some aha moments that happened for me recently is, training for me as a parent. My son is 7, he's autistic. Just for the benefit of those who don't know me. So for me, training myself also means training that follows me through the life of my child, right? So initially I thought, hey, I pay one big bill, go for one big training, and that's it. I know everything about autism, but no, my child's needs will change over the years. He's going to grow, he's going to develop. So likewise, so do I. I need to grow in my learning and develop my own understanding of autism because it changes. And which is what Nori said, it's so important to have our own support, right? Parents, we learn from each other. That's so important. And the other thing I wanted to say about parent training is, I know some of it have ridiculously high, huge price tags, and expensive doesn't necessarily mean good. There are also a lot of free resources available. Best resources actually are fellow parents. And even if you learn something now that doesn't, maybe it's not applicable, it might be applicable 5 years down the road, and like our friend Didi was also in listening in here. It's about the basics. We need the basics because we are the ones at home supporting our child daily. Yes, we send our kid to EIP for therapy and whatnot, but we are the ones who are at home with them, right? So maybe your EIP is 3 hours, just 24 hours in a day. We support them the rest of the days. So yeah, that's why it's so important. So, and also thanks Nasom for organizing this.
Thank you, Desiree. Thank you, Desiree. And I would also like to actually comment on what you said, Desiree. Parental training is so important, but people like us who don't have a child on the spectrum, training from parents, from all of you, training us is so important. I've been for one of your training, Desiree, and I've learned so much. And and I've been able to actually use all those trainings which you and all the other moms have shared in a practical manner. So I guess it's like it's a two-way thing, right? You learn from me and I learn from you, and then collectively we give all our findings, all our learnings to that child who's been entrusted to us. And I think that's just it's like a circle, it's like a partnership. We cannot work alone. And as what Nori's t-shirt says, we rock the spectrum. So collectively we can rock the spectrum with the right tools. Nori, there is a question for you, and the question reads like this. Awareness on autism is still low. As a result, early diagnosis is low, not happening at 24 months, being done at a later age. Doctors are not fully knowledgeable in autism diagnosis. As such importance for parental training for all parents as a standard criteria, what are your thoughts?
Gosh, if we could make a whole bunch of things, more required so that we would be better parents, that would be amazing. But I mean, the truth is we can't, right? So that's why the ongoing efforts by so many different people, not just associations and groups like NASOM, but individuals like all of you who are here, anybody else really, anyone else to help build the awareness, understanding, appreciation, all this is still very much something that we need. We absolutely need this. I wish that there was some basic course in parenting, a little bit like how we have to do khusus kawin, like wedding related courses. I don't know that it should be mandated by the government. Honestly, I think they should just I hope that they can come to a point enough of people being able to understand that this is something you'd want to invest in for yourself, because I don't know that we should subject people to always be formal with everything. Like, how I mentioned in the beginning that yes, you can take that route and do something really amazing and become truly qualified in a particular area, like studying it formally at an institution and getting yourself a diploma or a degree or something. But that's not the only way to get an education. um, I think that everyone has to play their part in being able to help change mindsets, thinking mindsets and thinking. I mean, finally, that's probably one of the most important things and significant differences it can make in your life and to the life of your child and your family. It's how you look at things, right? It's for people who have decided to view something positively and something that enriches their lives versus looking at something that's like a tragedy and they're not knowing how to cope and they cannot get over it, right? So it's your approach to things. Of course, you sometimes your luck or your circumstance would make it difficult. I am very mindful again that Timor is lucky and that we are privileged in so many ways. But finally, you do have to make your own choices. And I think those of us who are in a position who've already been able to help our child, we want to go out and be able to help others. And this finally will just kind of come from a mindset. Do you believe in community? Do you believe in availing yourself of help and thus also giving help to others? Or do how are you going to approach something? Right. So again, everybody's got to do the whole awareness bit. So just even having conversations with people, just the opportunity to speak about it, that will make for a more inclusive society. And we really, really need this. And I'm going to say one of my favorite pieces. Some of you will probably be bored of hearing this because I like to talk about it all the time, which is that diversity, right? That appreciation of diversity. Malaysia, we already have it. We talk about this diversity all the time. It's part of our DNA. We have a history, we have a legacy, we have geographic location, circumstance that has supported this wonderful thing that is like such a bonus. We've punched above our own weight relatively because we're a small country, because we've benefited from this diversity, right? So the next step is appreciating neurodiversity. It's not easy, right? Is it easy to live with people who are different culture, different religions and whatnot? But we've done it and it's so worth it. And that's the next level of appreciating that diversity. So yes, unfortunately, diagnosis happens late because people are not aware. We don't have that sort of resources for it. All the things that could happen potentially with early intervention and therapy also doesn't really happen as much as it should. So let's try to make it happen more. I think we cannot always wait for an authority or somebody else or government or somebody higher to say, well, we have to do it now, and then only people will go, okay lah, I gotta do it because it's a must. But I think we can all do our bit in making that little difference so that more of this happens, and then it'll become the norm, right? We want to destigmatize these things also, and we want to have people who need the support get the support. We should. Everybody, deserves to get the support that they need so that they can avail themselves of opportunities too. People first, right? We're human beings first. Let's not leave anybody behind. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Nori. I like the fact that you said mindfulness. That is so important. Being in the present. And we have a question here for you, another question. A lot of people are talking about, something that is guaranteed is death. And the question is, what are your plans for Timor? Have you thought about this? And it's like, I don't mean to be rude, but these are real things because I'm experiencing this. And everyone is talking about writing a will. We did have a focus group meeting with some of the Nassau parents, and one of the parents said that he's actually started a trust fund for his son because he has two young adults on the spectrum, and so he's actually made sure that there is care for them if he is no longer around. So the question is, what are your plans for Timor? Have you thought about it? If you can share.
Surely. This is a big thing. I probably think about it every other day. it's my biggest concern, and you know, I don't know, nightmare, difficult, whatever scenario. It's a fear, right? It's a constant. I wouldn't say it's the biggest. I take that back, but it is a constant, and I think it would be unrealistic of me not to be able to think about it for our family, for my, Timo's papa and I. Yeah, it's a very, very big thing. So one of the things, actually, I mean, this whole part, like even just being able to be here with all of you today and that opening awareness, and actually, it's part of that because I want essentially Timo's world, his surroundings to be a better place. And in order for that to happen, so that we can see a lot of different other improvements in different areas, then you got to put yourself out there, right? Be like a parent advocate, right? This is one of the things that we do specifically because I'm super worried about what's going to happen with Timor when we're not there anymore. He's 13 now, and at that teen stage, but I take a big interest not just in the teen issues, but also into issues and concerns affecting autistic adults and further education, learning, training, employment opportunities and things like that, and support needed for living skills, all those things, because he's going to get there one day, but I cannot afford to wait to that point in time and suddenly try to find him a solution when he turns 18 or like when he gets to be 21, right? So I feel that for us as a family, personally, this is kind of what we've done, like to see how we can give back to community and to see where community can then grow and see what changes we can make. That's one of the big things. It is both something that we believe in for everybody. We feel that this will benefit a lot of people, and our country. Certainly, we're very proud Malaysians, but the truth also is it's also for my son. It's a very personal thing, right? I feel like if I can do this, and maybe I'm hoping that I can create more opportunities for him in the future, right? Of course, there are other things that you can do. We've not gotten into the nitty-gritty and specifics of things like a trust fund, but there are some savings that we're trying to build and set aside, and that is for purposes of like the education and stuff like that. We have made sure to talk about Timor more consciously with family members. I've had to tell my two other sons there, I said, you all have to look after each other. You all have to look after each other. Of course, the implied message is that they might be the ones likely taking care of Timor, but I also hope that Timor would look after them, right? But putting that sense there, I mean, and that is a family value of ours. In our family, we believe we should look after each other. So I have to make sure that the next generation or whoever is there knows that you kind of have to be there for each other. So that happens to be how we think about it. I do understand that for some people they see it a little bit differently. When children go up, then independence matters, and then the ability to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. I think there are good things about those things as well, but I think we have to accept that when you are neurodiverse or you have disabilities, you're going to need more support, and you're not going to you might not be not going to be as independent as somebody else, right? You need a lot more other things to be able to just live your life well and healthily, and to find that purpose and everything. That's all those things. We want all those things for our child, right? If we put aside any of the specifics of this ambition or that or whatever, essentially what does it boil down to? You want your child to grow up with purpose and happiness and healthy, right? Whatever the details are. And we're not going to want that less for our children who are different. I'm probably a little bit more concerned about that because they cannot, they might not be able to carve that path out for themselves. So yeah, we think of it a lot. Do whatever it is that you can. If you have the means to do things like build a trust fund, definitely go build a trust fund. If all you can do at this moment, because you're trying to just get by and trying to even figure out if you can afford whatever therapy, then do the kind of stuff that I'm doing, which is be part of something somehow, get involved, get to know a lot more people, build that community and that support for your kid, So I'm hoping, as I build the support for him and myself and all that, there'll be enough of this family. And then, Timor's got a chance of having that community and being looked after and hopefully being able to contribute back to it too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Have we lost you? Okay. Thank you, Nori. Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I'd like to share is also a lot of people talk about insurance policies when it comes to sensitive and hard topics to actually discuss. And we want to share that our strategic partner, FWD Takaful, has launched this special medical card for persons on the spectrum, as well as for persons with learning disabilities. So if you want to find out more about what that medical card does or that policy does, please, you can always Google it. It's there. And Nori, there's a comment that actually matched whatever you said by Nick Didi. Yes, as we prepare our autistic children for the world, we are also trying our best to prepare the world for them. And this is so true, because the whole conversation that is happening around the world now is that let's not find a cure for autism. It's a lifelong condition. But let's move towards our conversations as in what do people on the spectrum, what can they do, who they are. Let's look at the strengths and take it further, instead of looking at the stigma that has been associated with them. And it's like I would always like to say this. We have a tagline: break the stigma on disability. It is about disability. So let's look at the ability and not the disability. So with that, Nori, we would like to play your video. And for those of you who are listening, and in this particular video, a very short video, but it's so impactful. It talks about what We Rock the Spectrum does, and whatever Nori has been talking about can be seen on this video. So Suresh will play it now, and then we will have a closing remark by Nori after the video. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. And for those of you who want to know more about We Rock the Spectrum, I think they are on social media, as what Nori mentioned. They are on Facebook, they're on Instagram. So you can always just type it and you can also find it. And also you can go through Project Hunts and you can know more about the services available in the country. And then also we just want to tell you a little bit about our upcoming workshop. It's going to be happening in June 18 and 19. It's a 10 hours training by Ron Kaufman and Kate Weil. And Suresh will share the poster. Yeah, so our target is for us to get 150 packs. And if we don't get 150 packs, we sadly cannot continue with this, because we need to also pay them in USD. So we would really, for those of you who know about Ron and his teaching, If you can help us share this, it will be great so that we can actually benefit a lot of families out there, because Ron also talks about how do you empower parents or caregivers. And it's really at the same belief of what We Rock the Spectrum has and what Nasom has, and also what Jasri has just said. So the information can be found at our Facebook page. And if you want to scan this, you can scan and it will lead you directly to all the information needed. Thank you, Nick, Didi, and thank you, Desiree, for having registered. Please help us find more so that we can actually have this course running here. So thank you all for being here in this afternoon, listening to Nori. She shared her real life experience. That is some of the comments I've just received. Nori is really good because she's actually shared real life experience. And Nori, thank you so much for being your authentic self and sharing from the heart. And we really appreciate this. Nasom really appreciates you sharing it with us. And what would you like to tell us, Nori? All your fans here.
So funny. It's so nice to see familiar faces. I think this is sometimes the only way I get through, and that includes you. And thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know, what can I say. I'm just I think the count your blessings every day, especially on the hard days. You have to count your blessings, because otherwise you will completely be off balance. And I think that in order to be able to do that, you need to get that support. So go back to getting support, not just for your child that needs it, but for yourself. And then when you are more supported, your cup is more full, you have more to give. And then we know the giving is really important, because we all need it. We all benefit from being able to be here for each other. I do all this also because, as I said, I've benefited so much from from all of you, and many other parents and people out there. I don't know what we would do if we were just alone. As I said, initially we started out and got that professional help, but finally I think what ended up making that huge difference really was the community in total, right? The combination of everyone. So yes, please invest your resources and time and effort. And Desiree is right. Some of it is not based on whether it's the really expensive ones that are the best. So pick and choose, of course, but occasionally there are some that are definitely worth investing in. And think about it's coming away with your skill, right? What could be more, finally sustainable, but something that you can take with you? That's huge, right? You can't always have your child work with a professional, but hopefully your child can be and is with you for as long as possible. And do the best you can for yourselves and them, and don't stay sort of alone, and don't feel like you're alone. So definitely reach out, and thank you again. I'm grateful for all of you.
Thank you, Nori. It sounds like you will not walk alone. I think it's the Liverpool. Is it Liverpool? Liverpool's tagline. I'm not sure.
Oh no, cannot say that in my Manchester United house. But okay, yes. You'll never walk alone is a good message. I'll give him that.
And also, it takes a village to raise a child. The old African proverb. And with that, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are going to be opening your fast soon, selamat buka puasa, and selamat hari raya to all those celebrating. And before we end our meeting, can we please switch on our cameras if you don't mind, so that we can take a nice photo, if you don't mind, that is. Okay.
Yes, please. Can everyone switch on your cameras, please?
Okay.
Just give me a minute.
Is Suresh, tell us when?
Yeah. Just a moment, please. Waiting for a few more people to switch on their cameras. Anyone else switching on their cameras? Just 1 minute. a few seconds.
Okay. Driving now.
Yes, please switch on. Just few seconds.
Cannot lie, it's dropping. So, Suresh, I think you better.
Okay, guys, give us your best Saturday smile and best Hari Raya and holiday smile. Finally, one whole week of holiday is here. 1, 2, 3. Another one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Nori, and bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Terima
everyone.
kasih. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Saturday.
Selamat Raya, selamat happy holidays. Drive safely.